Hello, everybody. It's Gary Stuckey back once again for another exciting episode of Real Music. In today's show, I've got the amazing guitarist Adrien Vandenberg. You might know him from Whitesnake and the Moon Kings, and he's got a brand new album with his band Vandenberg. We're going to talk about that and his career. Super nice guy. I think you're going to enjoy this. So here we go. Here's Adrien Vandenberg. I think I talked to Joel Hoekstra about that probably like a month ago. You friends with Joel? You've played with him a few times, huh?
Yeah, I know Joel. We met a bunch of times whenever Whitesnake is in a country, and I usually jam with them for a couple of songs. So
Awesome.
every time when they used to be over here, of course, right now they're not touring, and nobody
Right.
knows exactly if there's anything going on at all because no announcements. But yeah, great player, nice guy, so all is good.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I asked him about them, doing anything. He's like, you got to ask Dave. So it's all in
Yeah,
Dave's hand. Uh, Now, yeah, we're going to talk. You got a brand new album out with your
yeah.
band, Vandenberg. That awesome stuff, man. By the way. Uh,
Thank
but what are the advantages now of, you have your own band. You had your own band before Whitesnake. You get used to having your own band. What's the differences in having your own band and being in a band like Whitesnake? What's the differences?
Well, Whitesnake, as everybody knows, is David's band, and they had more lineups than changes than people change their underwear in general. So the band identity was usually David being the stable factor. In my case, that's the thing with Vandenberg. The advantage is that I have all the artistic freedom with Whitesnake, as people know. When the whole thing exploded, um, people are expecting like a certain kind of direction or something, and even though the direction that I've always made my music in, way before I joined Whitesnake, was very much along the lines that David also made his music, which is why we were a great team. David mentioned a bunch of times in the beginning, there's a couple of Vandenberg songs that could have been Whitesnake songs and the other way around. So it worked really well for us, and we're still in touch very regularly, and yeah, you never know if we end up doing something somewhere in the future. I don't know, but in my case, I'm really busy, as you can imagine, with this
Yeah.
new album, doing lots of interviews. We're going to start touring the States in February, March, which is my first tour in the States since 1990. The
Oh, wow.
Whitesnake, the Whitesnake
Wow.
one with Bye.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was watching that on the concert of that time on YouTube recently. And yeah, that has been a while, man. Uh, so David, though, when you were with Vandenberg back in the day, he tried to get you to join the band Whitesnake a few times. Uh, so how come you decided not to for a while, and then what got you finally uh, in the band?
Well, there were a couple of things. First of all, every time we got in touch, I was recording a new Vandenberg album in Jimmy Page's studio. In 1986, I got a phone call from John Kolodner, who was the A&R manager at Geffen Records at the time, and he said, "Would you mind? Would you be interested to come to fly to LA and talk about a new Vandenberg contract?" And because I just got out of my contract with Atlantic Records, and I said, "Yeah, sure." So I flew to LA, and when I got to his office, he said, "Well, I haven't been quite honest. I actually have two propositions for you. One is um, to fire the rest of the lineup for Vandenberg. I already had to get rid of the original singer because he was a disaster to work with for everybody, and then he wanted to form like a completely new lineup for Vandenberg with top class LA American musicians." And I said, "Well, this sounds interesting, but what is the second idea?" And he said, "Well, I would really like you to join Whitesnake." So I said, "Well, that sounds familiar because it happened a couple of times, but this time the timing was right." And I said, "Well, please give me 1 or 2 days to think about it because they have decisions have to be made." And he said, "Well, while you're here, would you mind making a new guitar arrangement for Here I Go Again and play a Vandenberg style solo on it. I said, yeah, great, because I've been a fan of David's ever since he joined Deep Purple, and the original version of Here I Go Again was already fantastic. I heard it in England when we were touring with Vandenberg, so I was very excited, and that's what I did. And then I quickly decided to join, because forming a new lineup for Vandenberg, I would never find a singer of David Coverdale's caliber, So I thought might as well join, and well, that's the rest of history, basically.
Right, right. So, and that had to be exciting for you, but you were probably kind of puzzled whenever it was told that he was getting rid of everybody and starting fresh, right? Did you kind of come in going, what's going on here? How did you find out that he was kind of doing a clean slate on the whole band?
Well, I already knew. For 1 or 2 weeks, we were a duo, basically. Till Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge were brought in, and Vivian. And I knew Tommy already from when Vandenberg was special guest to Ozzy Osbourne, one of those tours. And I knew Rudy when Vandenberg started headlining. Quiet Riot was a support act at a couple of California shows. So I knew them both. I thought it was really great. And I met Vivian a couple of times before that, but we didn't have a lot of time to talk at the time. But we got together for the first time, actually recording the Still of the Night video.
Awesome.
So that was quite interesting, of course, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And we were all excited because we all thought it was a great record, and we decided, let's join and see what happens. And then the whole thing exploded. I mean, who could have known? I didn't know, because David was in debt when I joined. He said, well, I can't pay you anything. I said, it's fine, as long as we make great music, it's going to turn out fine. I didn't care. I've never been in this business for the music, or for the money, sorry. I've always been in this business for the music, because I made a great living before Vandenberg already as a graphic artist and as a painter. So I thought, nobody's ever going to take those memories away from me. And if it stops one day, then I'll just go back to painting and graphic designs.
Sure. He must have had a lot of faith in you, I guess, during that time, like you said, with the not having any money and just taking a chance, just starting over, but getting you to come along. He had to have faith in you, and I guess that's why you're still friends after all these years.
Yeah.
He really likes you.
Yeah, we always got on great, and we spent a lot of social time together as well. I lived at David's house a couple of times. Sometimes, one of the times was almost a year, when we were writing, and then we started recording, and then we started mixing and all the stuff. I ended up staying at David and Cindy's place for like about 9-10 months or something. I started calling myself a poltergeist, because I didn't leave. We had so much work to do, and we had a great time. I cooked most of the evenings, and it was just and David and I used to watch movies and in the evening, or play music, record music on cassettes and all the stuff,
Well, that's got to be a rare thing, though, to and no offense to David, but he's gotten rid of a lot of people, so he probably keep those close friends nearby like you. I mean, the musicians / friends. I mean, it seems to me you would have to be working together well musically and just a fun guy to be around. Otherwise, it wouldn't work out. So,
Yeah, exactly. You spend so much time together in the tour bus and being on the road. That if there's, as the Dutch saying goes, if there's one rotten apple in the basket, then the whole vibe goes down the drain. So yeah, and with David and me, of course, there's a reason that we're still in touch. We became really good friends.
Sure. And when you came aboard, all the guitar parts were already recorded. You did the solo for Here I Go Again, right? So
yeah,
how did that work out?
Some of the rhythm parts, because John Kolodner thought that John Sykes played too heavy. He said it sounded like a metal band playing a country and western song. So Kolodner wanted it to be radio friendly, as he called it, which is the kind of style that I always did with Vandenberg, not intentionally, but that's what I do. I like songs with a top and a tail and a certain vibe. And here we go again in those verses. It didn't really need those really heavy guitars, so I put like a little bit of a cleaner guitar on it, and the heavy ones, of course, were needed in the choruses. And I
Right.
put my signature style solo on it, which was great. But when I when we were recording those parts, I hadn't even decided yet whether I was gonna join. But it only took 1 or 2 days, and I thought, man, I might as well join because got along great with David. The record was great. I knew I was sure we're gonna do great stuff together, and we did.
Sure. Um, and the solo itself, how many takes did it take to get that down right whenever you played?
About 2 or 3 takes. It went quickly. There was not a lot of time, apparently. I mean, the album took about a year or a year and a half to record, but they wanted the stuff quickly done, and I like to work quickly in the studio because I usually prepare myself well. That time I only had a chance to prepare the rhythm guitars because I was in the back in the back of the studio with a cassette recorder, and I thought, oh, like I had these clean little arpeggios that felt nice, and the solo, I thought about it for a little bit, and I went into the recording room. I think we did 2 or 3 takes, and that was it.
Awesome. And the video looked like you had a lot of fun making the video. How fun was it to make that?
Yeah, it was because with Vandenberg we didn't really make proper videos. I mean, the videos that we made, oh man, it's starting to serious wind over here. It's getting dark quickly because the rain
Oh
is
wow.
coming down. I'll put on some lights in a little bit, but it was a quick thing, and it felt good. I was in the back of the studio preparing myself for like a half an hour or something. Went to the recording room, and bam, that was it.
Wow. Awesome. Um, and I guess, but you guys gelled. I mean, you come on board, everybody's new, you're having a great time. I know it was fun to tour with that album, and that was probably the biggest album up until that point, I guess, and since that point.
Yeah,
Uh, so I guess the fans everywhere were just y'all were just on fire, I guess, with all the fans back in the day, right?
it was. It was really the shows were amazing. We played. We started as a special guest on Motley Crue, but it took a couple of weeks. Motley Crue didn't like it. That within like, first of all, Here We Go Again and the album shot to #1. Plus, Whitesnake was doing so much merchandise that the crew didn't weren't too happy about it apparently, and we started headlining pretty quickly. I think about after about a month or something.
Wow.
We didn't even have enough songs to headline, so there were 1 or 2 songs that we played double, and like 1 or 2 of the encores we just jammed on Tosh, like for instance from ZZ Top, the song
Yeah.
Tosh.
Yeah.
It was exciting, and then during the sound checks we learned some more songs.
Cool. That's awesome. Um, so I know you had different people in the band to come and go, and I know there's different controversies and things like that. I know that I think I read that you wanted to play guitar by yourself. Is that right? Instead of having two guitar players?
Well, no, I don't know where that myth came from, because I always knew that Whitesnake was a 2 guitar band. I think that comes from Vivian. Um, Vivian was not very happy camper in Whitesnake, and so that was had a lot to do with the fact that David stopped working with Vivian. But the main reason was that Vivian's wife was a pain in the ass. So when to everybody, to the sound guy, to the light guy, to the management, to everything, it was getting really complicated. And Vivian didn't like it apparently that David couldn't find the songs that Vivian suggested. David didn't think they were suitable for Whitesnake. So in the end, it didn't work out. And I heard from various fans at the time that Vivian thought that I had something to do with him with David not wanting to keep working with Vivian. I had nothing to do with it. I heard it from the tour manager that that they sent Vivian home. I didn't know.
Wow.
I thought I got along fine with Vivian. I didn't know.
Wow. Oh, have you talked to him since and straightened everything out, or what's the?
No, unfortunately not. I hope at some point I can, because um, it's a long time ago, of course, but still, it kind of bothered me that he thought that I had anything to do with it. Because he ventilated that in a couple of interviews apparently. But I mean, time heals all wounds. He's got a great gig with Def Leppard, so
Sure.
I don't think he's complaining. Driving around his Ferraris.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, but that is the sad part of entertainment and music industry, and life, I guess, in general. You have different rumors and lies and things you can't
Yeah,
really. Once it goes out there, it's kind of like if you wrote them all on a piece of paper and ripped it up and threw it out the window, you could never get those pieces back. You just got
yeah,
to let it kind of fix. You know what I'm saying? You just got to
yeah,
let it fix. Maybe one day, hey man, I'm all about reconciliation and people getting along. Maybe
yeah. Me too.
one day you'll see him somewhere and you'll be like, you know, no hard
Oh
feelings.
yeah,
Because I mean,
yeah. Of course, man. Life is too short for all those complications, and of course, at the time there was a lot of pressure on David and on the band and on the management, because that record did incredibly well. So there was a lot of business pressure on it on everybody. I didn't really feel it because like I said, all I want to do is make great music and see how it goes. And if I don't like it, I'll go home.
right,
That's how easy it is for me, because I'm in the music for the music.
sure. Um, well, the next album, uh, Slip of the Tongue. Now you were getting ready. You're excited because you're going to get to play the songs on this album, and you're writing the music. And then you injured yourself and you couldn't play. So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
did that happen?
Well, I didn't. Nobody knew at the time. I went while everybody was waiting for me in the studio. I was seeing acupuncturist and physical therapist and everything, and nobody knew what it was. Only about 4 years later. No, wait a minute. Much more later. This was in 1989. In 1999, I finally found out what was going on, and it was in the beginning of the 80s. I was in a car crash. I got hit by a car from the rear, so I had a whiplash. But nobody knew what it was, because after
Right.
2 weeks the pain was gone, and I started playing again. And but I suddenly remembered when a surgeon told me that it was resulting from a whiplash, because he had two neck hernias pressing against the nerve that that steers the thumb and the index finger with which you hold your pick.
Sure.
And that became more and more difficult. So when I was in the studio for Slip of the Tongue, one morning when I woke up, suddenly my wrist didn't felt strange. It felt like somebody was holding it. So I stayed for about a week, and then I told David and the producer. I said, guys, I have to go home, because I called up my dad, and my dad found a clinic that is specialized in treating musicians and ballet people and dancers and all kind of people who have like one particular motion that you do all the time, like playing.
Right.
So I got it kind of okay just in time to do the tour with Steve Vai, who played on the album, of course, like people know. Um, and then in 1999, I had a neck operation in the United States, and they removed those hernias.
Oh wow.
So the problem stayed a little bit, but these days, the last couple of years, I use my nail for my index finger and my middle finger as a pick, and I'm still working on that technique and improving it as much as I can. So yeah, that changed, but I roll with the punches, and when something gets in my way, I'll find a way around it, like this. Now I play with
Yeah.
my nails. It works. It's fine. It's
Sure.
not as precise as it used to be, because it's a different kind of motion, but it's precise enough for me to play what I hear in my head. So it's fine with me.
Well, I know that playing, which I play guitar, I always throw that in there just in case somebody cares. But no, but I play guitar and I always drop the pick. So I was always like, I'm tired of losing picks and dropping picks. So I would play with my fingers and my fingernails
Yeah,
and
there you
got used
go.
to that. So it kind of helps if you don't have a pick around, you got your finger, you know. So
Yeah.
but it is a certain sound though. I think there's a certain sound that it makes with your fingers as opposed there's a brighter sound with a pick sound, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So I use a combination. I use my fingers and my nails. You develop this kind of intuitive thing when you want it to sound a little smoother. You hit it with the flesh of your finger or your thumb. And when you want some attack, I use my nail because I got pretty long nails, as you can see, and they're really hard. So I really lucked out with my nails,
yeah,
because I use my thumbnail to cut open boxes from Amazon or something, you know.
you're
So
right. Slice. It's
so I always
deadly
got
weapons.
yeah, I
Defend
always
yourself in an alley or
leather.
something. Yeah. Yeah. But I think that that's cool though. I mean, I think I'm glad that you got your everything feeling back though. Was it that had to be rough though for a while to get used to that? I mean, until they
It
fixed it,
is.
I guess.
Yeah, it was very frustrating because writing those songs with David and then not being able to play them, and people have been asking me for ages, that they're so curious how the album would have sounded. I tell them, well, listen to the Sin album and listen to my 2020 album. That's how I had the sound in mind. How I wanted to put my guitar parts on those albums. But it didn't happen, so it's okay. Things happen for a reason, I suppose, and in my case, I'm a hardcore optimist, and I think, okay, piece of bad luck, but you just go on and come up with different solutions. And I really enjoy my life, so it's not something that completely fucked up my life. It's just one of those, blockades on the road, and you find a way around it, and you keep doing what you love.
But that is a good way to look at it though, and to be an optimist and to be like that, it's probably what helped you keep going because everybody probably gets to a point in their life sometimes when everything seems to go wrong.
Yeah,
But at that point, you must have been telling yourself, "Hey, I'm going to keep doing this regardless," because those things coming against you. You know, it's like you just said, it's like you get excited to play on an album, and it's like you don't get to do it. But
yeah.
what motivates you, and especially after all these years, what keeps you going and keeps you from having those rough spells like a lot of people these days get those depression areas and things like that that people get.
Yeah, I thanks to my mom and my dad, like I said, I'm always like a hardcore optimist, and I always think, man, life is a present, and if you're lucky and you're healthy and you have great friends and great family, that's the most important thing. And music and art have been the two most important passions of mine, next to cooking. But so I always feel really fortunate that I've been able to make a living with my passions. And no matter what happens, I will always find a way to deal with disappointments or whatever. I go, okay, shit, bad luck. I'm gonna change my approach and find a way to keep doing it. I love writing songs. That's like one of my favorite things. So I would always be able to do that if I wouldn't have been able to play again. After that injury, I would still be writing songs and making pizzas at home and making making paintings.
There's always something to do. That's right. um well, after Whitesnake, initially that first time, you you rejoined up with some of your former bandmates
Yeah.
and formed a band. So tell me about that experience and why did you decide to do that and form that band?
Well, I think it was 1993. David was going to do that project with Jimmy Page, and I didn't want to sit still. So Rudy and Tommy and I decided, you know what, let's put something together. And I wrote a bunch of songs, and and we got Ron Young from Little Caesar singing, even though the songs were already ready, because initially we started with James Christian from the House of Lords. That worked out a little strange, you know. He wasn't a great fit on a personal level, and Rudy and Tommy and I always get along fantastic. So we decided to change singers and start working with Ron Young, and it worked out great. It's still one of my most favorite things I've ever done. I think it's a timeless blues rock album and very spontaneous. We recorded it within 2 weeks, and that was it, you know. So we had a tour planned, and then suddenly David called up out of the blue if I wanted to pick up Whitesnake again. I thought, oh man, that's a really difficult decision because I loved the album that we recorded, but at the same time I thought, man, you know, if I wouldn't go back with David, then I would have been in that amazing period with Whitesnake, with all the success and all that stuff. But I would never have recorded on an album, you know. I wouldn't have played on an album because I wasn't able to in 1990.
Right.
So that's when we recorded. First of all, we did a greatest hits tour, and then David and I started writing music for the Restless Heart album. So and after that, we released that acoustic album, Starkers in Tokyo. So there's at least 2 Whitesnake albums that I play on from that whole period. So I'm really happy about it.
And it's good. Did you look around whenever you were recording that album and you were waiting for something like the sky to fall or something? Because the other times, and I'm just kidding. No, with all the negativity. See, that's what I'm saying. It's like you finally got to record on a Whitesnake album. You know,
yeah.
Like I said, the roof didn't fall in. That's good though. I'm glad that that you got that experience, you know, and got out of the way. But that had to be fun during those years to record with somebody like David Coverdale and those guys like Rudy and those guys. What makes a great band? What do you think makes a great band in your opinion?
For me, it's an interesting question. I mean, for me, there has to be chemistry on a personal level and on a musical level. I mean, for me personally, I mean, there's so many bands. Like for instance, one of my favorite bands of all time, Cream, with Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, and Jack Bruce. Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce were always fighting. Apparently, they made great albums, but they only lasted for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's the case with a lot of bands. You know, for me personally, it determines the quality of life. So I only want to be in a band where you get along great and you have a lot of fun together and you make great music. You know, that's for me like really, really important. And musically, it has to be you have to be the musical chemistry in order to make greater stuff than you would normally do if you just get along. It's basically like a sports team, you know.
Yeah.
You can put together a couple of great players, but if there's not like a synergy between those guys, they don't play well, you know. They don't get everything out of that combination as you can. And for me, it's the same in music. I want to have fun doing it. And if I'm with a couple of miserable bastards in the band, you know, I'm not going to be playing at my best, I suppose, you know, because you don't feel great.
Right. Well, after like Whitesnake, I know you're there for a number of years, and then you formed a band called Moon Kings. How was Moon Kings different than Whitesnake and Vandenberg?
Well, it was quite different because I stayed below the radar for about 10 years because I wanted to see my daughter grow up, who lived with her mom. Because after when my daughter was 3, we weren't married, but the relationship fell apart. And I thought, man, you know, if I'm gonna tour now, then I'm gonna be one of those dads who sticks his head around the corner twice a year and go, "Hi, I'm your dad," you know, but I gotta go. I didn't want to be like that, so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna quit touring for 10 years, and then I'm gonna pick it up when my daughter is 9, like 10, 11, or 12, so I can explain to her what I actually do, you know. And so that's why I laid low, and then I started Moon Kings. One second, I have to keep an eye on the time. What time is it right now?
What time is it? It's noon my time. It's
Oh yeah, yeah,
7 your time.
Yeah, it's 7 my time. I have another interview coming up, so
Oh, okay.
at 7, unfortunately. But yeah, I
Yeah.
put together Moon Kings to keep it short. It was great. We had a really great time. But the vocalist has 2 big farm companies, and he couldn't be out of the country for more than a day. So I really started missing international touring, and that's actually the only reason why I put Moon Kings in the refrigerator, so to speak, and started Vandenberg again, because now we're touring internationally, and we're going to the States, and so it was a bit of a pity, because we had a great time and a serious chemistry on stage. It was really great. But Jan, the singer, is a great friend of mine. But who knows? Somewhere in the future, we may do something. You never know.
Sure. Well, like you said, you got to go, but the new album that you got called Sin, I know you're excited about that. How did you end up doing this album and recording it? How did you get pumped up for this album?
Yeah, I started writing songs in the COVID period, and I thought, man, we couldn't tour, so I might as well start writing again. And yeah, I finished those songs, and we went into the studio, recorded it, and it's finally out. I'm really excited because Bob, the producer, and I finished the mixing in January. But it wasn't the right time for the record company to put it out. So I'm really happy it's out now, because it's been a couple of months, since it's done. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It was everything I hoped when I heard it in my head. The way I heard it in my head when I was writing, it turned out the way I hoped it was going to turn out. So yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait to start touring with this material. But when we tour the States, we're going to do a lot of Whitesnake material in the sets, because that's how most people know me in the States, from my period with Whitesnake.
Right.
And of course, a couple of classic Vandenberg songs, and a couple of new songs from Sin and from the 2020 album. So,
right. And the new music sounds great, though, and it sounds similar to Whitesnake, which I guess obviously for obvious reasons.
Yeah, that's the kind of music I've always made, ever since I was 20 or earlier, ever since I was 16. Deep Purple, Cream, Free, Led Zeppelin, Rainbow, you name it. That's what the kind of music I've always made.
Awesome. Well, I will
Great,
let
man.
you go. I'll let you go. I know you're on a tight schedule there, but
Yeah.
like I said, great music. What I've heard so far is just mind blowing, and you're one of the top guitar players out there, man. I mean, I've always thought so, and I appreciate you talking to me.
Thanks very much, man. I hope to see you on the road somewhere, and
Sure, I'll see you out there soon.
Flying the rock flag.
Yes, sir. Sounds good, man.
Take care, man.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Appreciate you. If you'd like to hear more about Adrian and his music, head on over to vandenbergband.com for more information. And until next time, everybody, always remember to keep the music real.